أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا طاهرا مباركا فيه وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا من لدنك علما نافعا يا أرحم الراحمين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد. All praise due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and peace and blessings be upon his beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Alhamdulillah, we finished with the rulings of wudu and the different aspects of wudu, when it's obligatory, when it's sunnah, the actions of wudu, the obligatory actions of wudu, the sunnah actions of wudu, and so forth. And today we'll be beginning with ahkam al-ghusl, the rulings of ghusl, which is the obligatory shower, or the obligatory washing of the entire body. When we speak about the interpretation or the definition of ghusl in the Sharia terminology, فَهُوَ إِفَاضَةُ الْمَاءِ الطَّاهِرِ, it's to rinse oneself with pure water, بِحَيْثُ يَسْتَوْعِبُ جَمِيعَ الْبَدَنِ, to the extent where it encompasses the whole body. So to rinse or to place or to use water on one's body in the sense where it reaches every part of the body, where it reaches every part of the body. So there's two main conditions in the definition. The first one being it has to be pure water that you use, like in wudu, when you want to make wudu. The other condition is that the water has to reach the entire body. Every position, every place in the body has to be reached, or the water has to reach the entire body. And we'll mention why, or we'll mention when the person has to make the ghusl in order for them to perform the ibadah. But here in Islam, as we mentioned before, Islam has directed, has encouraged for the person for cleanliness and for purity. Islam is a religion of cleanliness and is a religion of the person purifying themselves on a constant or on a constant basis. Hatta Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as mentioned in the hadith of Bukhari and Muslim, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, or Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, حَقٌّ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ أَن يَغْتَسِلَ فِي كُلِّ سَبْعَةَ أَيَّامٍ يَوْمًا. It is right, in another narration, the narration of Muslim, Imam Muslim, it is the right of Allah for every Muslim to perform ghusl every 7 days once. To perform ghusl every 7 days, at least one time. At least one time. يَغْسِلُ فِيهَا أو يَغْسِلُ فِيهِ رَأْسَهُ وَجَسَدَهُ, washes their body and washes their head. Meaning that even if the person doesn't perform an act that obligates ghusl upon them, the person should at least once every 7 days perform ghusl. Meaning have a shower. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created our bodies in which there is body odors that come out, there is certain smell and so forth. To clean that, you need to perform ghusl. To clean that, the person needs to perform ghusl. So here, as Nabi sallallahu, it's the right of Allah upon every Muslim to perform ghusl at least once every 7 days. Meaning if the person isn't married, the person hasn't done anything that obligates ghusl upon them, then the minimum is to have a shower once every 7 days. Once every 7 days. And that is, as we said, comes back to the encouraging of Islam and the Sharia of what? Of cleanliness. Of cleanliness. And the reason of so as well, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on Salatul Jum'ah, when a number of companions had entered into the masjid and they hadn't performed ghusl. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that also for Jum'ah to perform what? To perform ghusl. At least on Jum'ah, before coming to the masjid, the congregation of the Muslimin, to also what? Perform ghusl, and that is also something that is sunnah. The reason for ghusl, and when we say ghusl, we mean what? We mean the shower. The shower in which the water encompasses the whole body. In Islam or in the Sharia terminology, it's called ghusl. It's called ghusl. The reason for it is to be able to do that which is prohibited if a person is in a state of major impurity. Major impurity. We have what we call in fiqh al-hadath al-asghar wal-hadath al-akbar. Al-hadath al-asghar, it is sufficient enough to perform wudu. Al-hadath al-akbar, the person has to, which is a major impurity and minor impurity. Minor impurity is sufficient enough to what? To make wudu. The person breaks wind, the person goes to the toilet and so forth, wants to pray. In order for them to pray, they have to what? Make wudu. So that's called a minor impurity, hadath asghar. Al-hadath al-akbar, the major impurity, if that takes place, and we'll mention them in a moment, if that takes place, you have to perform ghusl. If you want to pray, or you want to enter into the masjid, or you want to read Qur'an, or you want to touch the mushaf, or so forth, if you've done one of these actions that we'll mention, you have to perform what is called al-ghusl, which is the shower in which the water encompasses the whole body. The hikmah from behind it, or the ruling from behind it, is that it makes permissible that which was prohibited, and you are rewarded for doing it if you are getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If the person is getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everything that obligates wudu is called what? Minor impurity. Hadath asghar. Everything that obligates a shower, a ghusl, is called hadath akbar. It's called a major impurity. Major impurity. So what is the actions, or what are the things that make ghusl obligatory? What are the things that make ghusl obligatory? And what actions have to be done in order for the person to be obligated to perform ghusl? And you want to go pray, but you can't because one of these actions have taken place. The first one is خروج المني إلى ظاهر الجسد, is the coming out of semen to the outer side or to the outer body. Semen coming out from the body and leaving and coming out of the body, whether by sleeping or while the person is awake. Whether it was by a dream or by thinking or so forth. So long as semen leaves the body, for no matter what reason it is, whether there's shahwa, there's no shahwa, awake or asleep, thinking about something and then it happened, or having a wet dream, as they call it, al-ihtilam, or whatever other action it is, the moment semen exits the body, it's now obligatory to perform ghusl. Once semen leaves the body, it's now obligatory to what? To perform ghusl. As the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, قال الماء من الماء. Al-ma', meaning using water and showering with water, comes from al-ma', which is the semen. Which is the semen. And the hadith of Salama, that Sulaim, she said, Ya Rasulullah, Inna Allah la yastahyi min al-haq. Sulaim, she came to the Prophet ﷺ, she said, Ya Rasulullah, Allah is not shy from the truth. Is not shy from the truth. فَهَلْ عَلَى الْمَرْأَةِ غُسْلٌ إِذَا هِيَ احْتَلَمَتْ. Does the woman have to perform ghusl if she sees a wet dream? قَالَ نَعَمْ إِذَا رَأَتِ الْمَاءِ. Yes, if she sees the water, which is the semen. Meaning that from both male and female. From both male and female. If any of them sees semen or semen exits the body, then they have to perform what? They have to perform ghusl. Whether it's from a shahwa or without a shahwa. Whether it's by an action or by dreaming or by thinking of something excessively or whatever it might be, the moment it exits the body, you have to perform what? You have to perform ghusl. They have to perform ghusl. So that's the first reason in which having a shower, an entire shower, a ghusl shower becomes obligatory. The second reason is sexual intercourse. Sexual intercourse, which takes place, of course, between the husband and wife. Any marital relations between the husband and wife obligates ghusl. whether there is ejaculation or not. Whether there is ejaculation or not. As the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says, إِذَا الْتَقَى الْخِتَانَانِ, if the two private parts of the male and the female, there is marital relations, then فَقَدْ وَجَبَ الْغُسْلُ فَقَدْ وَجَبَ الْغُسْلُ إِذَا أَنزَلَ أَوْ لَمْ يُنزِلْ. Ghusl has become obligatory whether there is ejaculation or not. Whether there is ejaculation or not. And this is, of course, the condition that it doesn't have to, or there doesn't have to be ejaculation. There doesn't have to be inzal of mani, of semen. As long as there is the marital relations, إِذَا غَابَتِ الْحَشْفَةِ, as long as there is marital relations, meaning that there has actually been marital relations, sexual intercourse, then that's it, khalas. There has to be ghusl, whether the person ejaculates or they don't ejaculate. So those are the two main things for both the male and female. Both the male and female. When we say here marital relations with both the male and the female, both the male and the female, they have to perform ghusl. They have to perform ghusl. Thirdly, this is with regards to the females. If the female has hayd, it is obligatory for her to perform ghusl after the menstrual cycle finishes. Meaning that when she sees, the female sees her purity, she has to perform ghusl. When the female sees her purity, whether with the white strip or complete dryness or whatever it might be, those are the two main ways of knowing the purity. Once the purity enters for the female, she has to perform ghusl. She has to perform ghusl. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, يسألونك عن المحيض قل هو أذى فاعتزلوا النساء في المحيض حتى يطهرن فإذا تطهرن فأتوهن. Stay away from the women. They ask you about mahid, which is the menstrual cycle. Stay away from the women during that period. During that period you stay away. This is between the husband and wife. No marital relations between the husband and wife during the menstrual cycle. It's haram. Once they finish, إِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَا, if they have reached the purity and they have performed ghusl, then the husband can go near his wife at that time. And also the hadith of Fatima bint Hubaysh, when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, إِذَا أَقْبَلَتِ الْحَيْضَ فَدَعِ الصَّلَاةِ. When the menstrual cycle comes, you leave prayer. The female, she doesn't pray. It's haram. It's not a choice. It's haram on the female during her menstrual cycle to pray or to fast, to do tawaf and so forth. It's haram. Meaning if a person does it, if a female does it, she's not going to increase in her iman. If anything, she's performing a sin. That during that time, khalas. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, leave prayer and salat. وَإِذَا أَدْبَرَتْ فَاغْتَسِلِي وَصَلِّي. Once that purity or that menstrual cycle finishes, once the menstrual cycle ends, then perform ghusl and pray. Then perform ghusl and pray. And here there is two opinions with regards to the female in her menstrual cycle. If the female sees the purity between, for instance, Dhuhr and Asr, or between Asr and Maghrib, here there are two opinions. In which prayers does the female have to make up? The first opinion is that, which is the opinion of the Ahnaf, is that the female only has to make up the prayer that she is in. Meaning, if the time for Dhuhr has come, and then she sees her purity before the time of Asr, she only has to make up Dhuhr. If she sees the purity after Asr, before Maghrib, she only has to make up Asr. And then she continues, of course. If she saw the Dhuhr, the purity between Maghrib and Isha, she only has to pray Maghrib. And then when Isha comes, she prays Isha. Or if she sees it after Isha, before Fajr, she only has to make it or pray Isha. The other opinion is that if the female sees the purity between Asr and Maghrib, if the female sees her purity between Asr and Maghrib, she has to make up Dhuhr and Asr. Or if she sees the purity after Isha, then she has to make up Maghrib and Isha. The two prayers. These are the two prayers that are combined in traveling, in sickness and so forth. So she has to make up those two prayers, because those two prayers, their time is like one. So if the female sees the dhuhr after dhuhr, it's agreed upon she has to make up what? Dhuhr. But if she sees it after asr, then there's two opinions. One opinion, she has to make up dhuhr and asr, and one opinion, she only has to make up asr. So there's two opinions with regards, and the same with Maghrib and Isha. Why? Because Maghrib and Isha are prayers that you combine, and Dhuhr and Asr are also prayers that you what? That you combine. If you're traveling, you combine between Dhuhr and Asr. If you're traveling, you combine between Maghrib and Isha. So there's two opinions with regards to that. An-Nifas, so that's the third. Fourth is An-Nifas. An-Nifas is the postnatal bleeding. The bleeding that the wife or the female sees after giving birth. After giving birth. We call it Nifas. We call it Nifas. And this is also something that once the Nifas finishes, the female has to what? Perform ghusl. The female has to perform ghusl. The maximum for Nifas is what? There's two opinions. One opinion it's 40 days, the other opinion it's 60 days. But the nifas can be 1 day. And the female can have her nifas, her postnatal bleeding, for 1 day. And then if the nifas finishes, the purity finishes, or the bleeding finishes and stops, then they don't have to, or they have to perform ghusl. They have to perform ghusl. So first is, if the semen exits the body, sleeping, awake, thinking, lifting something heavy, looking at something, whatever it might be. Once there is ejaculation, then the person has to perform ghusl. Or if there's marital relation, sexual intercourse between the male and the female, as long as the two sexual organs touch, then it has to be what? Ghusl. Whether the person ejaculates or not. Anzala aw lam yunzil. The third one is for the females, al-hayd, the menstrual cycles, when she sees her purity. The fourth one is an-nifas, postnatal bleeding, when she sees her purity as well. And the females in al-hayd wa nifas, they have to hasten in making ghusl. They have to hasten into making ghusl so that they can perform the ibadah. So that they can perform the ibadah. It's not in Allah they wait and they leave it. It is important that the females, for the females it is important that they always be diligent and hasten when it comes to the purity. And the females, they know their periods. The females, they know when it comes, when it's going to stop, when it's going to kada. So they should continuously what? Continuously monitor it. So that once it happens, to perform ghusl, so that they can perform the ibadah. So that they can perform the ibadah. The fifth one is the disbeliever, if he enters into Islam after having something that obligates ghusl. Meaning that the kafir, if the kafir, before entering to Islam, one of the four obligatory matters, or that which obligates ghusl, has taken place, then when the kafir enters into Islam, they have to perform now what? Ghusl. They have to perform ghusl to remove that which was there prior to Islam. So here the ghusl is not for Islam. The ghusl is not because the person was a disbeliever, now they're a believer. The ghusl is to remove the reason that ghusl was obligatory before they entered into Islam. Before they entered into Islam. And the person is not able to what? Because the description of having major impurity does not change by them becoming Muslim. Meaning that before coming into Islam, they had sexual intercourse with their wife, for instance. Or she was in a state of menstrual cycles, or whatever it was, from the four reasons that we mentioned. That description of being in a state of major impurity as a disbeliever doesn't change and isn't removed once they enter into Islam. So when they enter into Islam, they have to remove that description. They have to remove that description. So here the ghusl on the kafir when they enter into Islam is not for them becoming Muslim. It's because of the major impurity being there, and that major impurity having to be removed. Now, if they haven't had anything that they need to make ghusl for prior to them entering into Islam, then it is recommended for them to perform ghusl. Also, the person who is deceased, it is obligatory upon those who are alive from the Muslimin to what? To wash the dead body. Meaning when a Muslim dies, prior or before them being buried, it is obligatory to wash their body, to perform ghusl on their body, the same way that you perform ghusl as you are alive. The one who is washing the dead starts with the what? Starts washing the body and washes the complete body of the dead person, from their head down to their what? Down to their toes. And that's obligatory. And the obligation is on the Muslimin who are alive. And this is a fard kifaya. A fard kifaya meaning that if a group of Muslim, or if one Muslim was to perform that act, then the obligation falls off the rest of the Muslimin. But if a Muslim dies and no one washes that Muslim, no one performs the janazah, prayer and so forth, then all Muslimin in that area are what? Sinning. That's what we call a fard kifaya. Meaning that because the person is dead, he can't get up and wash himself and then bury himself. No, so the Muslimin, they have to perform that obligatory act. And if one person performs it, then that's it, khalas. It's no longer obligatory upon the rest. But if no one does it, meaning if a Muslim was to die and no one washed their body or buried them or prayed upon them in the area, for instance here, then we all cop the sin. Because this is what is called a fard kifaya. As the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he mentioned that when a man died, اغسلوه بماء وسدر. Wash him with ma and sidr. Sidr is a type of perfume. To wash the body with. So those are the 6 things that obligate a ghusl upon a person. Those are the 6 things that obligate a ghusl upon a person. When is a ghusl sunnah? And the different ghusl which is considered as a sunnah, first and foremost, the ghusl of Friday, to perform ghusl, to have a shower on Friday. And this is something that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, man ja'a minkum al-jum'ata falyaghtasil. Whoever of you comes to Jum'ah, then let him perform ghusl. So it's sunnah to perform ghusl on what? Friday. It's sunnah to perform ghusl on Friday. And here, there's a difference of opinion. When does that ghusl, or when is it counted from? Is it counted from? Because we know that the day begins in the lunar calendar from the night before. So Thursday night is really Friday night. When we here begin, we're still in Thursday night. On the lunar calendar, Thursday night is what? Friday night. And then the Friday morning comes. So the night comes before the day in the what? In the lunar calculation. Why? Because we follow the moon. So in order for you to follow the moon, you have to begin when the moon is visible, which is when? At night. At night time. So the night of Thursday is the Friday. That's why when we begin Taraweeh in Ramadan, you always begin the day before. And then the last day of Ramadan, last day of fasting, you don't pray Taraweeh. Why? Because the night comes before the day. So the day of Eid begins from the last night of Ramadan. The last night of Ramadan. So here, if a person performs ghusl Thursday night after Maghrib, and then goes to sleep, wakes up, goes to the toilet and so forth, and does kada, and then goes to Jum'ah, is that sufficient enough? The majority of ulama say no. The strictest of opinion of the ulama is that there shouldn't be any impurity, minor impurity taking place between the ghusl and you praying Jum'ah. Meaning that if you make ghusl and then you go to the toilet, you have to do ghusl again for the sunnah to be applied. For the sunnah to be applied. But that's a very strict opinion. Meaning if I wake up in the morning and I perform ghusl and then I go to work, and then while I'm at work I go to the toilet, then the sunnah of ghusl of Friday, I've missed out on it. Unless I go home and do another shower. Unless I go home and do another shower. The majority of opinion of the ulama is that any ghusl that is performed after Fajr and before Jum'ah is considered as what? As ghusl of Jum'ah. Of ghusl as Jum'ah. So the Friday ghusl, also to perform ghusl on Eidain, the 2 days of Eid, as mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ, كان يغتسل يوم الجمعة. He used to perform ghusl on Jum'ah. يوم عرفة, the day of Arafah. ويوم الفطر, Eid al-Fitr, which is after Ramadan. ويوم النحر, which is Eid al-Adha. Which is Eid al-Adha, يوم النحر. Nabi ﷺ used to perform ghusl on those what? On those days. Also, it is sunnah to perform ghusl for ihram, for Hajj or Umrah. Whoever's been to Hajj, whoever's been to Umrah, before you put your ihram on, to do Umrah or to do Hajj, it's sunnah to what? To have a shower, to perform ghusl. And then you go to the masjid, you go to the miqat. If you're doing Umrah from Medina, you go to Abar Ali, and you perform miqat or you perform ihram from there. So you do your shower, you have your shower, you put your ihram on, you go to the masjid, you pray 2 rak'ah, to sunnah, and then you make the intention. You make the intention of intended Hajj or intended Umrah or whatever you are there for. So before ihram, it's also what? To perform Umrah or to perform ghusl before Umrah or before Hajj. Also, it is sunnah to perform ghusl on the day of Arafah for the person performing Hajj and not anyone else. For the person performing Hajj, and Nabi ﷺ, when he was on Arafah, he performed ghusl. So it's sunnah for the person on the day of Arafah who's performing Hajj to perform ghusl. To perform ghusl. Not you're here in Australia and it's the day of Arafah and you wake up and say, I want to perform ghusl because it's sunnah. No. It's sunnah for the person who is there, who is on Arafah, who is performing Hajj. As the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he mentioned so. So these are the sunnah, the day of Jum'ah, the 2 days of Eid, to perform ghusl, the day or the ghusl for the person who wants to perform ihram, and the person either for Hajj or Umrah, and the person who is performing Hajj and is on Arafah to also perform a ghusl. To also perform a ghusl. These are the sunnah, or when ghusl is considered as sunnah, and we mentioned prior to that when it's considered as obligatory, and inshallah ta'ala we'll mention next week or the week after what are the obligatory actions of ghusl. Meaning that what is the minimum you have to do when performing ghusl. The minimum you have to do when performing ghusl, and this is something of great importance. Because if the person performs ghusl and misses out on an action or doesn't perform it properly, then their prayer that is after that is not accepted. Their prayer that is after that is not accepted. So that's something of great importance. And the simple answer to what is obligatory in ghusl, before we go into detail in the next lesson, the simple answer is water has to reach your whole body. Water has to reach your whole body. Where the hair is, under the hair, has to reach the skin. To be more precise, it has to reach the skin. And you have to make sure that water reaches everywhere. Meaning that it's not sufficient enough for you just to go in and to wash your body without your head, or to just throw water on your head without it reaching the skin. So you have to make sure that water reaches to the whole body. And then we'll go into detail inshallah next week or the week after it, when or what are in detail the obligatory actions which are يعني for ghusl to be accepted inshallah ta'ala. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.
Here's a quick question. If you're watching a dead body and you get water splashed back onto you, is that also from all over again, or just is that minor?
If one of the things, subhanAllah, a brother asked me the other day as well, with regards to the urine of an infant boy or girl. It's a bit different to your question, but subhanAllah, the same idea a lot of people have. They think that if the infant is a boy or if it's a girl, if it's a boy then you have to perform wudu, if it's a girl you don't have to perform wudu, or vice versa. Some people have that misconception, some people don't. That is not the urine of a girl or a boy doesn't nullify wudu. Washing the dead body, the majority of scholars we mentioned, doesn't nullify your wudu. Meaning that wudu has to be, for wudu to become compulsory, for you to have to make wudu, it has to come from yourself. Meaning you have to either urinate or do a number 2 or release air or bleed, according to the ones who say bleeding, or whatever it is. So something else coming onto you doesn't nullify your wudu.
But is that urine from a baby, is that still najasa?
That's where the opinion that it is najasa, whether it's boy or girl. The Hanafi madhab is that they're both najis. They're both najis. The other opinion, and that's where the people get confused, because there is an opinion that the urine of the boy is not najis. It's sufficient enough for you to spray water on it. But the urine of the girl is najis. Not because it's a boy, not because it's a girl. It's a scientific thing, a scientific factor of how the urine comes out and so forth. So it's not, no Allah, because it's a boy it's not, or because it's a girl it is. So people have taken that and then they've gotten confused in saying, does it nullify wudu or not? Or if I changed my daughter's or my son's nappy and I touched the urine or I touched the poo or so forth, do I have to make wudu? No, you don't have to make wudu. What nullifies wudu is that which comes from yourself, an action that you do. And as I said, with regards to washing the dead body, that the majority of ulama said you don't have to make wudu after it. Eating camel meat as well, majority of scholars said you don't have to make wudu after it, and so forth. So the actions that are agreed upon that nullify your wudu are actions that come from yourself, come from your body, not from the outside. That is najasa. If a kid urinates on you, it's najasa, you can't pray until you clean it. Or if a dog licks you, that's najasa, you can't pray until you clean it. Or if if you're person's washing the dead and then water sprays onto them, we have to look here, is there a najasa or not? Because the believer la yanjus. The believer doesn't fall into impurity. But if while the washing, because when the washing of the dead body is happening, the stomach is what? Is pressed. So that anything that is inside, that is in the intestines, it comes out. Anything that's in the intestines, it comes out. That's why you see when you slaughter an animal, when you slaughter a goat or so forth, or a sheep, as you're slaughtering it, what happens? The urine comes out and the feces comes out and so forth. So as when the body of the person is being washed, they press on the stomach to make sure that any najasa comes out, so that it doesn't come out later on when they've put the kafan and they've rolled the body and so forth. So they make sure. That's why Ali radiallahu anhu, he says when he washed, because Ali washed the body of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, I went to see and I was looking to see that which you see from the normal human being, which is the coming out of the urine and coming out of the feces and so forth. He said nothing came out and we didn't see anything. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam while they're washing him, of course the awrah is covered. When Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he was washed with his clothes on top of his clothes. They washed him. Because it's not befitting that they see his awrah, that they see the awrah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So he was washed with his clothes on, meaning that they put water and they began to wash him on top of his clothes. Even the normal person, when they are washed, the awrah is what? Is covered. For the female, the awrah is covered. For the male, the awrah is covered. And that place is washed with a what? With a barrier. Meaning they hold something and there's a barrier and they wash on top of it quickly, make sure there's no najasa, and that's it. So the awrah of the believer, the awrah of the person is preserved and protected even after death. Even after death, the awrah is always preserved and protected. So wudu, nullifying of wudu and even ghusl comes from the person himself. An action they did or something that came from them. Not anything that comes on them nullifies the wudu or makes it obligatory to perform ghusl. Wallahu a'lam.
I wanna be in Jannah, 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 Jannah. Every Muslim dreams to be up in Jannah, 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 Jannah. A pious person's destiny. Inshallah in Jannah, 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 Jannah.